We welcome in 14-time world champion, 9-time WWE champion, and 5-time world heavyweight champion. The one and only Paul Levesque, better known to wrestling fans and everyone else as the one and only Triple H. How are you, my man? How's everything?
I'm doing great, man. I can't complain. Thanks for having me.
Well, first of all, we want to get right into this because here's my this is my problem with you from Jump Street. Now, you're supposed to have had a health issue, but you're sitting in front of me looking better than me, which isn't hard, by the way. But you're pulling it off. How you feel?
I don't know. That three-piece you got going on, it's on fire. So,
how are you, man?
I'm doing good now. You know, it's been a incredibly tough last 6 months.
Yeah.
You know, coming out of SummerSlam, leading into that, I had been on about a 12-day road trip going East Coast, West Coast, and we had tryouts and we had everything under the sun going on, plus SummerSlam and a pay-per-view back-to-back. And I was in Florida when towards the end of that, I started feeling really run down. I thought I had some COVID, which, I had before. I was vaccinated twice and had a run of COVID without symptoms, but I was beginning to think that I was having shortness of breath and, everything else. I went and got tested for COVID. I didn't have it, but I had a viral pneumonia. My lungs were inflamed. And, as the next couple of days went on, when I got home, it got increasingly worse. And my wife saw some blood and stuff that I was coughing up and went and got checked. And, it was coming from the viral pneumonia, but I had fluid in my lungs. I had some fluid around my heart. So they followed up on it, did an EKG and echo and everything. And basically, the way your heart pumps out, 55 to 60% of your ejection fracture is a good number. I was at 30. And I got a quick text message saying, don't take time, pack a bag real quick, head to the emergency room. I'll fill you in on the way.
Now, who sent you the text message?
From one of my doctors.
Okay.
That was just kind of following this medical stuff up the line of didn't like the way my lungs were inflamed, even though I had pneumonia, was kind of something more going on here. So by the time I got to the emergency room, my ejection fracture had gone down to 22, which, I was in heart failure.
Wow.
Bad. By the next morning, as they figured that out, that evening, by the next morning, as they were sending me in to get an MRI done and about to go in for a heart cath, my ejection fracture was down to 12. So I was I was nosediving and sort of at the 1 yard line of, where you need to be and or where you don't want to be really for your family and your future. When they got inside, I basically genetically had a 99% blockage in my left anterior descending artery, which is what they call the widowmaker. My heart had started to create a secondary pathway, but that was clogged as well. So I was basically, moments away. If I'd have thrown a clot or of any type or had any kind of thickening, I was gone. And that's the kind of thing that's sudden and instantaneous, and you don't know. What I did know was my dad had a triple bypass at 62. My grandfather passed away at 70 from heart disease. I didn't know, I just found a couple of weeks prior to that my great-grandfather had died at 52, sudden death. So it was a genetic issue that had kind of kicked in out of nowhere.
And even though you knew that history, you never suspected, you never saw any inclination, any indication whatsoever that this is something that could potentially happen to you?
I mean, everybody knows it could potentially happen to them, right? But that's why they call it the silent killer. Yeah. But, through WWE's wellness program, we had some of the best cardiologists in the world. I never had high blood pressure. I was checked all the time. Never had high blood pressure, never had high cholesterol. I never had an issue. Had a little bit of an athletic heart, which most athletes do, right? A little bit of enlargement, but nothing serious, never once had been talked about medication or anything else. It just came out of nowhere and, but came out of nowhere at a point where, it's touch and go in that moment. And it could have been go at any point in time.
I want to go to the emotional aspect of all of this because your lovely wife is standing right over there. Everybody knows how much you love that lady. It was not to love about her, for crying out loud. But, to know that you're going through this and essentially your life is on the line. I imagine that she was right by your side the whole time. What was this like for her? And what was this like for you watching her go through this with you?
she was a rock, always is for me, but never wavered in it, you know. And we have 3 young girls, 15, 13, 11. You know, suddenly I come home, I'm a little bit sick, and their dad, who's, you know, strong always, suddenly is in the hospital. And I don't know if they understood the consequences of it, but, you know, there's moments in there where you, when they're putting you out for stuff and you think, is this it? You know, do you wake up for this? That's tough to swallow, you know, and makes you think differently, I'm sure, as you've come out of your COVID scare. Makes you think differently about life. Doesn't make you any less driven for the things that you do, but it certainly makes you appreciate the things that you have more, your friends, your family.
When I went through what I went through, I was relatively open about it immediately once I got out of it. Not judging any way or another, but when I read reports, you hadn't spoken much about this. You were relatively quiet about it. When folks approached your wife, she said, "You're doing fine. He's looking great. He's feeling great." And that's basically about it. Was there a reason that you were relatively quiet in the initial aftermath of it all? Did you want to wait? Were you not sure about how you were feeling? What was it? Because obviously you're a very articulate individual. You know, you're a leader, you're an executive, and you're somebody who's known for speaking on a plethora of issues. But you were relatively quiet at this particular moment in time.
I think at that moment, one, it's very surreal, as I said, but you certainly don't want to misspeak on it. But yeah, I think the not saying anything was not knowing. And then you're in the thick of it, and it's like this whirlwind of stuff coming in that you're confused about. You don't want to speak about something and be wrong on it and have to go back later and correct yourself, and, you know.
Totally understand. Now with that being said, you do know more now.
Yeah.
So where is Triple H as we speak? I mean, I'm imagining you've reflected on the workload you had on your shoulders. People are looking at you, and as great of an executive as you are, you're also a great champion. What does the future hold for Triple H right now? That's what people want to know.
Yeah.
What do you say to them when asked that question?
Well, for me, you know, as far as in-ring, which I get a lot, I'm done.
You'll never fight.
I won't. No, I would never wrestle again. First of all, I have a defibrillator in my chest, which, you know, probably not a good idea for me to get zapped on live TV.
How about that?
Yeah. But I think I was already in a place in my career, as far as in-ring goes, where it was kind of, I was comfortable with being done and being finished. If the right thing came along, I hadn't really said much, but if the right thing came along and they wanted me to do it, I had a conversation with Vince McMahon about doing something at WrestleMania this year in Dallas, which we had talked about and there were plans for. Obviously, when this happened, it shut all that down. As far as the schedule, you know, WWE is an intense place. It's 24/7, much like yourself, where you're just running.
Right.
I think it's just put things in perspective for me.
Totally get that. What are you going to be doing in the wrestling world as an executive now? Because we know you're not. I can't imagine you're letting that go.
No, my foot's not off the gas. I suppose in some manner I've got to step back a little bit. I'm still in recovery, and my endurance is not exactly quite what it used to be before. But right now I'm back. I'm at the office. I am fully focused on recruiting and development of our talent in the future. And you know, whether that's building more performance centers, whether that's finding the next young stud that's out there, male or female, like Gable Steveson, you know, who recently 2-time NCAA champion, gold medalist at the Olympics, right? His next step is as you saw him leaving his shoes on the mat the other day. His next step is with WWE and with us. It's finding that, it's creating that future, and that's the biggest focus for me. And as we move forward from there, it's making sure that WWE is a success for generations to come.
WrestleMania 38. Super Bowl, that's the Super Bowl in a lot of people's eyes. It's big time, no question about it. We've got Brock Lesnar, we've got Roman Reigns. When you look at what's going on right now with the WWE, the world of wrestling, how do you feel about where the business is at this particular moment in time? Because I think it's booming.
It is, without a doubt, and I do believe that we're just nicking the surface of where it will be. You know, it's every single year it grows and it grows and it grows, right? WrestleMania this year will be in AT&T Stadium for 2 nights in front of, you know, hundreds of thousands of people probably over those 2 nights. It's massive on a global scale. The reach of it is incredible. We're just nicking the surface internationally of where we can be. We're growing by leaps and bounds, and I think that this next level of athlete that's coming in the door, you know, there's a whole generation of kids and athletes that grew up watching WWE to be the biggest form of entertainment they knew of. They see The Rock. They see, you know, guys like The Undertaker that have transcended generations and transcended the WWE to become household names globally. There's not a lot of people in sports in any way, shape, or form that can do that.
It excites me, but I also worry about it in a certain respect. I grew up watching Andre the Giant, Hulk Hogan, Macho Man, Randy Savage, The Ultimate Warriors. I watched all of this stuff, all right? And I've loved it for years. And The Rock, Goldberg was my all-time favorite. That's just me. I loved Goldberg just because of his entrance alone.
I didn't love it because he speared me all the time.
I understand that, but that's okay. That's okay. It's all right. I mean, there's a lot of victims. I mean, went 175-0 at one point to start off everything. I'm looking at it from that perspective and seeing how they've transcended even John Cena to a lesser degree. Obviously, The Rock that I already brought up, Dwayne Johnson, and others. How challenging is it going to be for you to find that next somebody? Somebody that's a transcendent. I know you can find somebody that's going to be big for the WWE, but I'm talking about transcendent figures. Isn't that the challenge of Triple H? Because you're the guy that finds guys like that.
It absolutely is. Larger than life is what we're after. Right? You're not looking for the guy that you can see. Nobody pays to see their next door neighbor. Their next door neighbor lives next door. You don't need to pay. Just look out the window. They want to see somebody larger than life that they can't believe exists. When you look around today, you see that already. I think when you look back 10 years from now, you're going to see Roman Reigns as one of those transcendent figures. I think you're going to see people like Becky Lynch and Charlotte Flair as those transcendent figures.
Rousey. Let's not forget her.
Ronda Rousey. You know, Brock Lesnar. What made Brock Lesnar more famous? The fact that he came from WWE, went to UFC, or where he is now. Like there's so many aspects to that. They're already there, right? It's funny that in the moments of it, when John Cena was first coming along, people were like, hey, he's good, but he's never going to be that transcendent figure. And here he is, where he is. No question. The Peacemaker, all the things that he has going on, he transcends. The Rock, biggest box office star in Hollywood. You know, all those things happen over time. The people are there in place now. The funny thing about what we do is sometimes you can plan for this person to be the biggest thing in the world, and it's not that one. It's this one over here that you're not looking at that just won't take no for an answer, and they just light the world on fire. You know, Becky Lynch is a great example of that. She just came in and said, I'm going to be the biggest thing here, and no matter what anybody thought about it, she went and did it, and she succeeded.
Pat McAfee.
Yeah.
Can't forget that name.
No.
Big time radio show host now on Sirius XM podcast, doing great things. Love the guy personally. He's fighting some guy. Who's he fighting? Was it Austin?
He's going to fight Austin Theory
right?
with Vince McMahon's backing, which means, you know, look, if you know anything about Vince, he's not going to play fair. So McAfee's going to have his hands full.
That's right. I was getting ready to ask you, how do you think he's going to do?
I think he's going to do great. You know, Pat has performed in ring for us before and just blew everybody's mind with how good he was at this. You know, little known fact about Pat is that he really wanted to be in WWE, went and bought himself a ring, threw it in his barn, and has been training in it for years. People don't give him credit for that because he wanted to do this. Pat's one of those unique performers that when you talk about larger than life and building yourself up, right? He's got the gift of gab. You know, not many people got what you guys have, right? You can do it and make yourself a household name just by that. You can back it up athletically, and that's what matters in our world, those two things.
Before I let you go, I got a little recruiting element for you. You know, I mean, I ain't getting in no damn ring to wrestle. I'm not doing that. But do you know the kind of people that I've idolized for years? Bobby the Brain Heenan. Ric Flair because of you know how I feel about Ric Flair, and Paul Heyman. I think I'm going to be one of those bad guy managers one day. I think I'm going to do that. I think I'm going to do that one of these days.
Let me say there's a connective tissue between all of those, is the ability to create a character or really be someone that people want to punch in the face on a regular basis.
Yeah.
I believe that most people want to punch you in the face on a regular basis.
I think so.
I think you'd be awesome at it.
I think so.
Let's do it.
I got to talk to Vince and you and the crew. You're gonna have to pay me now. You have to pay me.
We'll have that discussion. Yeah. Vince is a shrewd negotiator, my friend.
Man, I'm so happy to see you, man. So happy to see you.
I'm happy to be here.
All the best.
And I'm happy you're here.
Absolutely. Thanks a lot, my man. One and only Triple H. Best of luck to him in the future, and we'll all be watching WrestleMania on April 2nd and 3rd.